Hi, and welcome to the I Teed Myself podcast. My name is Matthew Miniman, and this is episode 51. What can leg day teach us about speed? I don't know why I did that. Anyway, leg day. If you're not quite sure what leg day is, you probably have never had to enroll yourself into a weightlifting class for 3 straight years in high school, where you get endlessly tortured by a teacher who gives no shits about your ability to lift and does not care that you are smaller than nearly every other person in that room. Anyway, was that too much? No. So leg day everybody likes leg day. No, everybody hates leg day. It is the concept of having a gym regimen where you go and work out, and every day you work out a different region of your body. You have chest day, you have arms day, you have back day, you have cardio day, you have leg day. And leg day is exactly what it sounds like. It focuses on your legs. You do lifts that are designed to work your legs and stress those muscles. Things like squats, a leg press, leg lift, donkey lift, there are just an absolute crap ton of lifts. Belgian sideways, upside down, transitive lift. I don't know. The people have come up with crazy crap to do. At any point, at any rate, the leg day is important because, to encourage overall body fitness, you have to do leg day. But for whatever reason, nobody likes leg day. Everybody loves to skip leg day, which is pretty apparent because if you've ever gone to a gym and you've ever seen these motherfuckers with just an absolute massive amount of muscle, they'll have teeny tiny little legs. And it's quite obvious they've skipped leg day. And what's particularly annoying for me as somebody who actually does leg day is that fashion does not take this into account, that there are people who actually do lifting. And so pants, I have a problem finding right size pants because I have legs, whereas these idiots who have like tree trunks for arms, they've got little bitty toothpicks. And so you'll see this. And while these guys probably can lift a whole bunch with their arms, they can probably bench press me and a car on top of it. They look top heavy and they're weak, and that can be a problem. And just like with computers, so a long time ago, way back when, at the beginning of really at the beginning of the personal computer phase, it was a thing that the computer speed, or the speed of your computer, really depended upon the processor that you had in the computer. If you had a 33 megahertz processor, that was slower than somebody who had a 66 megahertz processor. Oh, and when gigahertz processors came out, oh my God, that was the thing. That was what you had to have in order if you're going to have a fast computer. And, you would see computers come out with these speed specs, and they were really just concentrated on the hertz because it was a single number. It's a way to identify how fast your computer was just by the processor. Well, as computers have gotten faster and components have gotten more technically advanced, what you're seeing is that the whole industry has shifted from being able to easily tell what speed is, how fast computers are. Because now speed is not a single number, and that makes it difficult to tell what is a fast computer and what's not. So I will attempt to show you how to identify a fast computer in general terms. Now, it's not always going to be universal because there are a lot of considerations. There's what your use case is for a computer. There is what type of computer you're going to buy. And so we're primarily going to try to focus on consumer computers for standard everyday use. And part of the reason why I want to do this is that one of the things that we see a lot in IT is that when a business owner or user buys a new computer and that computer does not perform like they think they should, they get upset. And sometimes they'll blame IT. Well, all your shit is slowing my computer down. And you have to tell Admiral Akbar to shut the hell up because he spent $300 on a new computer, and $300 is probably the absolute minimum you can buy to pay to have a functional computer. So in this, when you're buying a computer, one of the things you need to look at is the processor. Yes, the processor still does matter in speed, but it doesn't matter exactly the way that it did in the past. So processor speed, gigahertz, megahertz, the clock speed doesn't necessarily matter all that much anymore. Now, you do have to pay attention to that number because if it is too low, you will have a slow computer. However, 1.9 gigahertz, 2.5 gigahertz, 3.2 gigahertz, those numbers are all going to belie the rest of the system. Your processor is always going to move faster than the rest of your computer for the most part. So what you want to do is you actually want to look at like the series number. Like, what is the series for Intel computers? That's an I number. It's i7, i9, at least for right now. Who knows, within 2 years of this podcast being published, maybe that number will change. Maybe that'll be like an M number or whatever. But yeah, for Intel computers, it is, or for Intel processors, it's the I number. i7, i5, i9. The higher the number, the better. And again, I said this when building a computer in that episode. That number also corresponds to legitimately how long you can expect that computer to last in terms of years. So i9 could last up to 9 years, i7 could last up to 7, i5 5, i3 3 years. And AMD kind of has the same thing. Now they have different processor types just based on the branding, but Ryzen is probably the most popular for consumer purchase right now. And so Ryzen is actually the same deal. They have Ryzen 3, Ryzen 5, Ryzen 7. I don't know if they have Ryzen 9, but same deal. You can look at that. And that number actually corresponds to kind of the quality of the processor, how many cores it has, what type of internal communication functions it has, and that number can drive speed as much as anything else on the processor. But you have to remember is that number is kind of the key piece to see there and not the gigahertz. You don't want to go for the fastest clock speed because that isn't necessarily the fastest processor in terms of how you're going to be able to use it. Clock speed does mean it's fast, but the fastest clock speed on the market today, just native clock speed, is on something like a Core 2 Duo processor, where it's that processor will not do you as a consumer any good because it's not crafted in a way that will work with modern computers, or at least not well. So anyway, the processor number, yes, that is something to look at. That is something to look at for the speed of your computer. The next thing you want to look at is the speed of your RAM. Your speed of your RAM is actually a really good identifier for how fast your computer can be, because your RAM is actually one of the limiting factors on the OS stack. When you are processing commands through the OS, everything has to go through RAM in order for it to make it to the processor, because that's kind of just how information transfer works within a computer. So when you are looking for a computer, you also want to make sure that you are identifying the speed of the RAM. The faster the speed of the RAM, the faster the communication. That is the thing. Now, that being said, there is sort of a certain point where it does not matter anymore. Like right now, I believe DDR5 is the fastest RAM that we currently have on the market that's purchasable by consumers. And DDR RAM ranges from 6400 MTAs. Is that what it is? MTAs or whatever. Its rating is 6400 to 8000. And the higher that number, the faster the RAM. And while those numbers can identify faster RAM, the problem is that your CPU, your processor, might not be fast enough to really fully utilize it for a lot of reasons, and some of them we'll get in next. But for the most part, your RAM speed kind of tops out at your processor speed. You're not going to make your RAM, you're not going to be able to have a faster computer by having RAM that is faster than your processor. They kind of just have to be at the same rate. And so there are a lot of different functions you can use, a lot of different features you can use to fix this. But that gets into the more advanced settings through BIOS and through clocking, through clock speed and whatnot. But needless to say that there are some built-in functions of Intel processors and Intel adapted RAM where they attempt to sync themselves as far as speed is concerned. Now, other considerations to look at for speed are things like what else you're doing on your computer. So if you are gaming, you're going to want to have a graphics processor, GPU. And this is entirely an arbitrary thing where, not arbitrary, but it's a dumb rule that the higher the number of the video card, the better it's going to be. That's just how it is. So if you want the fastest fucking video card ever right now, that is a 4090 Ti, but NVIDIA is about to release a 5090. AMD also has video card line. I don't know what the current numbers are represented in AMD, but you can go and find those yourself if you're really looking for that. But at any rate, video cards, I'm not going to get into that, but if you want to find a lot about video cards and shit like that, you can go and look at Linus Tech Tips and stuff like that. They cover video cards and all that kind of endlessly, and I'm not going to rehash any of that in this podcast, mainly because it's pretty simple. The higher the number of the video card, the better it is. So, that being said, that is all kind of the normal part of building a computer. The RAM, the CPU, motherboard also takes into account there. You kind of have to have a motherboard that supports everything. If you don't, you're going to have an issue with compatibility. But if you're a normal consumer, you're probably not building this piece by piece. You're really just looking at the specs and trying to pick which one you're going to buy. So from there, that's kind of the normal stuff that people look at is the CPU and the processor speed and the memory. And they look at that in the graphics processor, and they look at that and they go, oh, okay, well, this is probably going to be a pretty fast computer because I've got a NVIDIA 4090 Ti, I've got an i9, and I've got 64 gigs of 8000 RAM. It's going to be amazing. It's just going to be absolutely fucking the fastest computer ever. And that is basically the akin to working out and really just focusing and probably skipping leg day. Because the one aspect of your computer that you probably don't consider, and that is very difficult for a lot of folks to consider, is the hard drive. A lot of people forget about the hard drive. And one of the things that you have to understand about modern operating systems is that as part of the operating system stack, the IOPS, meaning the operations on the hard drive against the hard drive, are what are put in priority. So if there are services or processes that are waiting to write things to the drive, it can slow down the rest of the computer. So when you are looking at a computer to build, you have to make sure you understand what you're doing and buying as far as a hard drive is concerned. Because a bad hard drive, a slow hard drive, will slow down the rest of your computer. Now, why is this? Again, it's because the IOPS, the OS stack, and how the OS attempts to order operations within a process. And if you are waiting to write things to a hard drive, your process will wait. Your CPU is sitting there doing nothing. Your memory is just has absolutely nothing to do either, because it's not there's no transfer of information. And so everything is sort of just waiting for the hard drive to finish so that it can do the rest of the stuff. And so when you are building a computer or buying a computer pre-built, when you are looking at the hard drive, the important aspects of that are going to be looking for what type of hard drive is in there. Is it a spinning disk, meaning does it have an RPM rating next to it? Is it a 7200? Is it a 5400? Is it a 10,000 RPM hard drive? All of these things can affect speed. More frequently, more often than not, you will have a hard drive that is an SSD, or solid state disk. And these drives are typically faster, but not necessarily so. And so some of this is what you'll have to pay attention to. You'll have to go in and kind of do a little bit of research on the hard drive that you're getting, because those aren't necessarily included in the detailed specs of the computer that you're buying. And I'm not entirely sure what the reason of this is, but a lot of times computer manufacturers will just put what the size of the hard drive is, but they won't give any indication as to what is actually there. And so that can be a problem. So when you're looking at buying a computer, pay attention to that hard drive. And there's no easy way for you to understand what speed a hard drive is, even if you can get the specific manufacturer and model number of the hard drive. There's not one number I can point you to identify what the speed of that hard drive is, because what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go into and research what the maximum IOPS of that hard drive is. And that isn't going to be on any data sheet ever. You're going to have to go and look at the manufacturer for that. And so you can, when you're buying a computer, you can look at the aspects of the aspects of the build through the specs, and probably be completely blind to the fact that you are buying a computer that has a slow hard drive. And a lot of manufacturers will do this. They will sell a computer that has these really amazing specs and then for whatever reason cheap out on the hard drive, because spinning disk hard drives are in fact very cheap. They are extremely cheap right now. You can go and buy a 14 terabyte spinning disk hard drive, 7200 RPM for something like $250. It's not a huge cost to go get 14 terabytes of space. But that space will be slow. And if you attempt to run an operating system off of that disk, you're going to have a bad time. It's going to be slow. It's going to be slow to respond. It's going to be slow to load. It'll just be a lot slower. And so when you're building a computer, you're going to want to focus on how that hard drive is and what it is. Because, and a lot of gaming systems that you buy now, or gaming computers that you buy now rather, and some workstation computers that you buy now, they'll actually come with two separate drives. One will be a solid state that's something like 120 gigs in size, and then that'll come with 2 terabytes of space on a spinning disk. And that's to give you it's to give you the best of both worlds. You have the speed of a solid state, but you also have the space of a spinning disk, and you can use one for your operating system and another one for storage. Because typically if you're storing stuff, you don't have to reference it that fast, and it's not necessarily that big of a deal. Now you can go overboard and do like some crazy motherfuckers do and go and buy 5 NVMe drives that are Samsung 990 Pros, pop those in and do a RAID 0 on them to where you are basically effectively able to write on each disk all at the same time. And yeah, that's going to be super fucking fast, but god damn it, you're just tempting fate, hoping one of those drives doesn't fail and just bring that entire drive down. So anyway, this is exactly kind of this, the hard drive is basically leg day, or focusing on your hard drive and building a computer is like leg day. If you don't do it, if you don't spend the time to research and investigate what your hard drive is, you're not doing leg day. And you're going to come out of that gym looking like a Dorito that's going to fall on its face because it can't keep itself up on its 2 toothpicks. And your computer is going to be slow as hell. Your processor, you're going to be able to do really fast calculations, but you can't write anything to the disk. And so your computer's just going to be really fucking slow. So, that's all I got time for today, guys. I hope you have a great day.